And so when a student is interested in becoming a pre-med and then eventually applying to medical school, they might think, okay, well, what major should I do in college? What type of background should I do? And Dr. Robinette, I'm going to ask you about majors and sort of, are there certain backgrounds in terms of educational backgrounds that you look for individuals? For example, is a science related degree important, or is any degree valuable? Where would you go for that?
Yeah, it's so interesting. I feel like it's evolved over the year. I was told back in the 90s, if I want to get into medical school, I should be an art history major. It's like, I'm not going to do well in art history. So I just did chemistry because that's what I can do. So I would say choose something that you enjoy. College is definitely a time to explore and get all kinds of fascinating classes. And we don't care what you major in. You need to do the prereqs. We have some basic prereqs that you can see on our website. We also recommend strongly biochemistry and immunology. So certainly you're going to have some some science prereqs for those courses, but it really doesn't make any difference to us what you major in. And as far as educational background, I think at least at Maryland, we really don't look at what is maybe negatively called a pedigree of any sort. We probably 10% of our class did 2 years at community colleges. We recognize the finances of undergraduate degrees are incredibly difficult these days. So, we take people from all different backgrounds. Again, really just emphasizing or trying to see it as a binary. Will this person be at an academic risk or not? And as long as you have a solid science GPA and solid MCAT, then that kind of checks that box. And it doesn't matter where you went to undergrad or what your degree was in.
Perfect. And thank you again to the deans for answering the questions in the Q&A. Guys, keep asking your questions away. We'll try to get through as many as possible. And the next question is going to be for Mr. Taylor, because I've seen it a lot in the chat. And it's about sort of clinical experiences or ways to get yourself exposed to the world of medicine. And, what type of experiences have you seen students apply to in terms of seeing what a doctor does on a daily basis and really kind of knowing, hey, like I've talked to patients in the past. I sort of know what this whole field is that I'm getting myself into. What types of experiences have you seen from people, and how's the importance of it to you?
I would have to say we've seen just about anything that's out there, one way or another at one time or another. We think the most valuable experiences are those that are valuable to the applicant. There are these things we call them box checkers, and for God's sakes, don't be a box checker. Don't do it just because you think you've got to do it. Do it because it's fanning your flames, it's building your fire, it's showing you that this is the right career for you. This is what you've got to do in your life because it's hard. The second question we always ask of ourselves when we're evaluating an application is will this person do it? And that's every bit as important a question as can this person do it from the academic side. You've got to have that. You've got to have that push, that background. It's got to be internal. I can pretty well assure you that grandma's motivation won't get you through it. It's just too hard. But any of these things, we like to see people that have maybe seen a little of the downside of medicine. It's good to know that not everyone gets well and goes home happy from the hospital. So the same doctor that brings really good news to one family has to bring really bad news to the next one. Can you do that? Is that something you could do in your life? Because you will likely have to do both at some time or another. So what we look for is a person. It's not the quantity of the experiences you get; it's the quality, and the quality is totally what it did for you. How did it inspire you? How does it send you on down this trail of a career in medicine?
Definitely. Thank you so much for that answer, Mr. Taylor. And I'm going to piggyback off it for you, Dr. Goodell, because those types of experiences that a physician has can be very difficult, delivering good news, bad news, and really having seen a lot of different ups and downs in the medical field. So when you're looking at a candidate, whether it's during the evaluation process or even during the interview and trying to really connect and understand the individual, how can you get a good sense of somebody's sort of maturity level or understanding of those ups and downs and how they've gone through the process?
Oh, well, that's probably the hardest part of our job, actually, because honestly, most of the people that make it to the interview stage are I don't know, like competent and pretty polished. And I think people know I think a lot of people have a sense of like what the right thing is that they're supposed to say. And so I am always trying to, in the interview, ask questions that really get at who the person is. And so, I mean, one thing that we do sometimes is I will, I have been known to give pushback on people's answers a little bit. Okay, so here's an example. I sometimes ask the question, this is going to ruin it now. I can never ask this question because all these 1,000 people are going to know. Anyway, I sometimes ask the question, what's your Achilles heel? And a lot of pretty sophisticated medical school applicants will quick do some thinking in their subconscious and be like, this is the time for me to talk about my weakness. I have prepared this. And then they give me some super annoying non-weakness like, well, I tend to take on too much responsibility, or like, oh, sometimes I'm kind of a perfectionist. Anyway, so my response to that is sometimes to say, no, I'm sorry, I reject that answer. It's too boring and it sounds like what everyone says and it's too good. What I really want to know is, what is something that might not even really be a weakness, but just keeps coming up and causing you to stumble like over and over again? That's what I want to know. Something that actually has caused you a problem, weakness or not. And what I am really looking for there is I don't really care what the person says their weakness is. It would have to be egregious for me to like really think it was a problem. What I really am looking for is, how do they respond to my feedback? Like when I say, nah, not good enough, do they like freak out, get nervous? Do they get mad at me? Do they get defensive? Or are they able to say, okay, I see what you mean. All right, let me think about this. And then they tell me like, okay, well, honestly, I had somebody ask this question the other day and I had somebody said, it's asking questions. I really need to get better at asking questions in class. I'm kind of afraid to do it. I'm always afraid I'm going to look dumb. And honestly, right now I'm in trouble because of this, because I didn't actually ask about the requirements for this project. And now it's due and I have to ask a friend and hope they're right. And I was like, okay, that was legit. But really what I was looking for is, I just wanted to know that somebody would like respond. And to me, that's a marker of maturity. And it's a marker of kind of being able to take a little, it's like a communication skill. So I guess a lot of that comes out in the interview. We also look for that sort of thing in the letters of recommendation. Although that's tough because letters of recommendation just emphasize the good things and they don't tell us the less good things. So
Fair enough. And that's such a good point. I remember honestly when I was interviewing for medical school, that happened to me as well. I think my interviewer asked what was a challenge that you went through, and I gave some answer about some class, and I think he said, that is a notoriously bad answer, and he gave me a chance to give another answer. So it's definitely something that happens, but you could overcome a bad answer. So